So laws of indices then, obviously intermediate tier stuff. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail towards the higher tier stuff. I'm just going to rein it back just to look at the intermediate tier stuff with indices. So indices are powers. So if I was to write down this question here then, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, if I was to write that as a power, that would be 2 to the power of 4. You know that 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3. You know that 4 cubed is the same as 4 times 4 times 4. The answer is not 12. And if you're tempted, I've got 3 4s here. You're tempted to say 12, but it's not. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. So be careful when it comes to powers. If I had 3 times 3 times 3, if I was to write that as a power, my base number is a 3. 3 to the power of 3, or 3 cubed. We can do exactly the same here with letters. X times x times x would be x to the power of 1, 2, 3. You'll notice my x and my times signs are completely different. Okay, the x is like 2 C's back to back. Multiplication sign is obviously the one that you've been using for years now. So make sure, if we're putting x times x, make sure it looks like that. If you put that, mathematically it does not make sense. They are 3 multiplication signs. That there is 3 kisses on the bottom of the text. Keep it out of your maths. Make sure your x is written properly. So then if I had the other way around then, if I had 2 to the power of 5, if I was to write that out in like the long way, that'll then be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here it is there. If the question is asking for a value, okay, value is the answer. Okay, a numerical answer. So here then, you're tempted to put 2 times 5 is 10. You're tempted to put 10, however, it's not. So we're going to follow down the line using multiplication. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. 2 to the power of 5 is 32. That's the value. Right, so let's look at some rules then. If I had 2 to the power of 3 times 2 squared. Okay, now this 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2. Multiply that then by 2 squared, which is 2 times 2. If I was to write that as a power, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 2 to the power of 5, similar to the question above. Now, I have a 3 here as a power and a 2 here as a power. And surely you can see what's happened to these 2 powers to get 5. Well, 3 add 2 is 5. So when we multiply, we add the powers. Let's just check that again then. If I had 5 to the power of 4 times 5 squared, 5 to the power of 4 is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. There's my times sign there from the question. And then 5 squared, 5 times 5. Hopefully the colours are helping so you can see where they've come from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 to the power of 6. Shortcut way though, we know when we multiply, we add the powers. So we'll make a note of that. When we multiply, we add the powers. So that's for multiplication. How about division? Let's have 2 to the power of 5 divided by 2 to the power of 3. Now, you're used to seeing the divide sign looking like that, but GCSE though, we tend to use 2 to the power of 5 over 2 to the power of 3. It means exactly the same thing. Please don't freak out, you see a fraction. The fraction literally is a divide symbol. You can see it there. Okay, line with top and bottom. But to work out the answer then, let's write this out in full. So I've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 over 2 times 2 times 2. Well, now that I've got numbers on the same as top and bottom, they cancel each other out. So I can cross out that 2, and that 2. You can see I'm left with 2 times 2, also known as 2 squared. So I had a 5 here and a 3, 5 and a 3. And my answer is 2 to the power of 2. So looking at these two, we can clearly see we have to subtract the powers in order to find our answer. When we divide, we subtract. Make a note of that. When we divide, we subtract. The powers. Okay, so we know that when we multiply, we add the powers. When we divide, we subtract. Okay. Let's combine them both together. Let's have 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 4 divided by 2 to the power of 1 times 2 to the power of 5. Okay, big question now. Multi-step question, but let's just follow our rules. Right, multiply, you have to add the powers. So 2 to the power of 7 divided by the power of 1 to the power of 5. 1 add 5 is 6. You'll see here I've got 2 to the power of 1. You will notice though, sometimes you will see just a 2 by itself. You know any number by itself, technically it's the power of 1. So you could put it in or just remember that it's there. So then I've got 7 now, 2 to the power of 7 divided by 2 to the power of 6. When we divide, we have to subtract the powers. 7 take away 6 is 1, so if I've got 2 to the power of 1. Or, don't need to put the 1 in, you could just have it as 2. Either answer, you would get the mark. So it's multi-step, be careful, multiply, add the powers, divide, you subtract. How about then, if I used letters and numbers together? If I had 2a squared multiplied by 4a cubed. Big numbers, letters and powers. Multiplication. I'm going to start off with my big numbers in front here. With these, you do actually multiply them. So I've got 2 times 4 is 8. I've got a squared times a cubed. When we multiply, we add the powers. The base number or letter stays the same. A to the power of 5, because I add the powers. Even with a division, if I had 15x to the 7 divided by 3x to the 4, the power of 4. Look at my big numbers. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. I then got x to the 7, to the power of 7, divided by x to the power of 4, would be x to the power of 3. When we divide, we subtract the powers. Multiply big numbers, divide big numbers, be careful with your powers. Little things to remember, anything to the power of 0 is 1. Anything, because if I had 2 times 2 or 2 squared, divided by 2 to the power of 2, or 2 squared. If I worked out a value, that would be 4 over 4. Remember, when the top and bottom number are the same, numerator and denominator are the same, equals one whole number. And that's the reason why, because we have to subtract. If I had 2 squared divided by 2 squared, remember, subtract the powers. 2 take away 2 is 0, so that's 2 to the power of 0. But as I've shown you here, if it's the same on top and bottom, it's always going to be 1. So anything to the power of 0 equals 1. Multiply, you have to add the powers. Divide, subtract the powers. Be careful, if you've got big numbers in front, then actually carry out the operation that's written there. So if it's times, obviously multiply them. If it's divide, divide them. Be careful with the powers. And also remember, the fraction is just a big divide. Hope that helps.